Hey guys, so we've been learning about Keith Haring, and today what we're going to do is we are going to practice drawing some basic symbols that Keith Haring used pretty frequently in his artwork. So these symbols aren't too difficult to draw, and we're going to walk through and practice these. Now, you do have access to this paper that I am showing you through your Google Docs, and you will be able to print that. It's posted to Flipgrid and in your Google Classroom. If you don't have a printer at home, no worries. I'm going to show you how to set up a paper so that you can follow along with us, okay? So what you'll need is a pencil and an eraser, and if you can't print this, then what you need is a blank sheet of copy paper and either a Post-it note or something that's rectangular in shape. If you don't have Post-it notes or you can't find something, no worries, you can always freehand this. But the Post-it notes are just about the same size as the boxes that I set up for you. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to trace actually 6 boxes on here because we will eventually be doing 6 practice drawings. For now, I'm just going to demonstrate for you that you can set it up by tracing those. I would do 3 down one side and 3 down the other side of your paper so that you have a total of 6 boxes. And then you would draw your first drawing in here. Okay, so we're going to follow along with this sheet that I printed out. And these are, like I said, pretty basic. So Keith Haring's hearts were not perfect, but I know that surprisingly it's something that a lot of students feel like they have trouble drawing, probably because hearts are symmetrical and it can be challenging to get both sides the same. My hearts certainly aren't perfect, but I am going to show you a trick for doing this. So there is a simple trick where you just start out by sketching 2 hearts, or not 2 hearts, 2 circles, got hearts on the mind, 2 circles side by side, so they do have to touch. You know, if you're really worked up about this, you could find something that's a circle. You'll notice that my circles are not exactly the same size. Okay, so you're sketching 2 circles, sides are touching, and then what you're going to do is you're going to come down from these sides. So imagine a line coming down here. You are going to connect to that line on both sides to create your heart. Okay, and then what you do is you go back and outline. That once you've got it done, you take out those circles and those guides, and you should end up with a pretty decent looking heart. Okay, so again, this still isn't perfect, but neither were Keith Haring's hearts, and nobody seemed to be bothered by that, including Keith Haring. So we are going to just sketch in that heart. Now, pretty simple. He did hearts in a lot of different ways, and you'll notice that we see a lot of dash marks in Keith Haring's work, indicating movement and direction. So that's something to keep in mind as you're planning out your final piece for this assignment. All right, so if we want to begin to think about adding arms to this, it's pretty simple. It starts with a diagonal line on both sides of the heart. Remember, you can pause my video and follow along at your own pace. We're going to come down here and we are going to draw a line down. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to come in here and essentially follow the outline that we just created. And you'll notice that on his, they're not exactly the same. So like over here, this is more curved and a little bit thicker. Our drawing does not have to be identical to his. Okay, so I'm going to extend this a little bit longer. And then I am going to just finish this with a curve here. Connects back to this line. And a curve here. Connecting back to this line. They almost mine look a little bit more like music notes. Mine are a little bit more curved than Keith Haring's were. And that's okay, because I'm not Keith Haring. All right, so I'm going to erase those overlapping lines. Okay, and then for the legs, it's very similar. I do want you to pay attention to how Keith Haring used very simple lines and shapes, but was really able to communicate to his audience that there was movement happening in his drawings. So we're looking at this leg first. Comes out, down. Okay. We're going to draw a line there, and then this one gets a little bit wider on this side. And then the foot comes out like this. Okay. Now notice how on this leg the knee is bent. That helps to create that sense of movement. The legs are not the same. Okay, so I did a line down and out. I'm gonna come back here. And do the same thing. And again, you can always adjust your lines. Clean them up. This is practice, just so we get a chance to practice the technique before we do it on a summative assignment. And you don't have to copy the entire drawing for now. This one is pretty basic. What I'm really worried about you doing is just practicing the basic shapes and elements of this style of drawing. So you can go in and you can add those movement lines. And this is something that you may want to include in other drawings. I use movement lines sometimes in my warm-ups when I'm drawing cartoons and things like that. All right, so then here he had a basic line coming across. And then we see these little dash marks in here, okay? If you want to, once you're done with this, so this is not a requirement, you could go back in with a black Sharpie if you wanted to. You can use a thick one, you can use a thin one, really your choice, and outline the final piece, just if you want to. And then of course you would go back in and erase your pencil line for a neater presentation. Remember, the lighter you draw, the easier it is to erase. I tend to draw darker in my examples for you than I would normally, just to make sure that what I'm drawing is showing up on the screen for you. All right, so here we have a little running heart. Pretty simple, probably simpler than a lot of the warm-ups we've done. And then of course you could put the little dots in and go back in, like I said, once you're done with your eraser, pull out any of those pencil lines you no longer need. Okay. Sometimes you would see lines like we have here around the outside of the hearts. Sometimes you would see the heart being held up by people in Keith Haring's drawings. So I want you to make sure that you've watched the Keith Haring bios and the CBS Sunday Morning News segment, so that and really pay attention to the images you're seeing. Okay, so here's the first one done, and we're about to move on to the Radiant Baby. Okay, so we've completed one drawing in the style of Keith Haring, and now we're going to look at the Radiant Baby drawings. So there are a lot of drawings or pieces of art by Keith Haring that include an image of an infant or a toddler crawling. So we're going to look at that today. So the first thing I would have you start with is I'm going to encourage you to sketch out a circle lightly. You know, I always like to start with pencil. And again, my drawings aren't going to be identical to Keith Haring's, but they will definitely be in the same style. So I didn't finish the circle. I left an opening, almost like this is a letter C that's falling over. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from here, a gentle curve on here, and I'm going to come out, do another little curve to establish the foot, bring a straight line out from there, and come back up. Okay, this is not going to go all the way up to where the head is. We're going to stop it about right here. Then what we're going to do is we're basically going to follow this outline on the other side. So we're going to start about here on the head, bring the curve down. We're going to do another line out, curve line out, and back in. Okay, so that's essentially following the lines for this. Then we're going to come down here and we are going to add the line for the radiant baby's belly. And then we're going to come back up here. And we definitely notice on this one there's a bit of a diagonal line slanting up. I'm going to curve the behind a little bit more. This is a little bit sharper than I like to do it. I'm just going to curve it down. And I actually probably need to make that a little bit more narrow. Maybe not quite so high up. That's better. So I'm going to take this off. Okay. From here, I'm going to come in and do almost like a letter U. Okay. And we're going to come in from here, do a straight line out, come down, and curve that up to make the foot. Okay, from there, we are going to do a little foot back here. So we'll just see that much of it. So again, once you have your lines in place, you can always go back in and clean those up using a Sharpie, and then we'll go around and just put the lines around. So just go ahead and alternate the size of the lines. So you'll notice that it's a longer one, smaller ones, longer, smaller. And they don't have to be in the exact same spots as where Keith Haring had them. This is more about practicing a style than it is about copying it perfectly. Go with our eraser. Pull out any of the pencil lines we no longer need. Okay, there's the radiant baby. All right, so for this one, we're not actually going to draw all of this. What we're going to do is we're going to practice drawing one person. You can choose to do a different one than I'm doing. If you are feeling anxious about the drawing, you can follow along with me and do the same one as I am selecting. Okay, so to start drawing a person in the style that Keith Haring used, I typically like to start with the head. So if we look at these images, we see that these basically, again, we're coming back to the same shape with the baby. So we've already practiced some of these drawing skills because we've done the legs, we added legs and arms to the heart, we've done a head in this style. So now we're just going to kind of put this all together to form more of an adult size figure. So we're always seeing like these kind of rounded hands, very simple feet, kind of these rectangular bodies. Sometimes if they're turned to the side, we'll see a curve. So let's do one where, let's try doing one kind of like this, okay? So we're gonna start with looking at where Keith Haring placed the curve on the figure. So I'm gonna start about here because I'm gonna need some room for that arm to go up in the air. So it's just basically a curve. Like think of it again, like I said, it's almost like a letter C that's fallen over. Okay, it doesn't close, so we're not finishing that circle up. Then off of here, we see a straight line coming up in the air. Okay, and then from here, we're gonna see another line come down and curve. Okay, so we've already got the head and the other arm. So we're gonna come over here. We see this arm comes straight out. So we're gonna start it a little bit up. I'm not gonna have it connect right here. I'm gonna have it start just a little bit up from there. It's gonna come over, straight down, and then that curve for the hand. Okay, so we're gonna come back to here and we are going to follow the lines, a line straight down, a line straight over. Okay, from here we're gonna add the curve of that body. It does curve a little bit because this guy or girl, this person, let's just put it that way, this person is turned to the side. Okay, I'm gonna come over to here and I'm gonna bring this line for the arm down. It's going to extend slightly past this and it's gonna come out in a little bit of a curve. So this is the person's behind and it curves out just a little bit. Okay, now we can come back over here and draw the knee up in the air. So we draw a small line, a line straight down with that curve on the bottom. Okay, from here, we're going to do the same straight line following this line, and then this is going to come over like this. All right, a slight diagonal line, another diagonal going in this direction, curve of the foot. We're going to extend this line down a little bit lower, in towards the point on the knee, and then straight down and out. Okay, I would also like to point out that here again we're seeing these use of these dots underneath here in the ground, and we're seeing movement lines added. Some just very simple expression, some lines to create that sense of movement. So if we go back in again with our fine point Sharpie, and we're just going back in, refining the lines, completing them. Okay, and then I'm going to put some of these lines in here. So I can even add some that weren't there, because again, we're not copying this exactly. Our goal is not to make it perfectly like Keith Haring's. It's to look at what he was doing and begin to understand his lines and how he used mark making. So as we add these lines to our person, it helps to give it the sense that maybe they're dancing or jumping around. Okay, and then if you want to go in and draw the ground, you can, but what I'm really looking to see is that you've done the person, and then of course you could grab a thicker Sharpie if you wanted to and start, you know, practicing putting in some of these simple marks. All right, and then of course I always like to go back in with my eraser, pull out any pencil lines I no longer need. Okay, so we have a dancing person here, and we'll be doing the next one in just a minute.